afternoon, Port Jervis, and welcome to the Port Center Spotlight Podcast. Excited here for my guest today to join us here live in the studio. Jim Colaiaco, Port Jervis retired band teacher, middle school teacher for many, many years. And we have Jim on the program to celebrate him this Friday, tomorrow, October 13th, Friday the 13th. Port Jervis very excited to announce the naming of the press box at historic Glennette Field after Jim Colaiaco himself. Jim, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Andrew.
Yeah,
happy to be here.
We are happy to have you here, and we are so excited about this event here. Again, the naming of the press box. If you are local here in Port Jervis, and you know us, you certainly know Jim. You know his calls in historic Glennette Field. We're naming the press box for him. Jim, what has this meant to you? How does this feel for you?
Well, was certainly unexpected. I think that's to say the least. Very proud of this. Many years up there, but I never thought anything like this would ever happen, and I'm very happy for this honor.
Yeah, 45 years calling the games.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, what an honor it is for you, and we're thrilled here in Port Jervis for this for you. Let's go back.
Okay.
You were a teacher in the middle school, and by happenstance, by chance, you were asked to do the game. Correct? You want to tell that story?
Well, I started at the middle school in September of 1970, and at the time, Tom Hoppy was the principal. And Pat Ferris was assistant principal, but also athletic director for the district.
Mm-hmm.
At that point in time, athletic director was not a full-time position. And I don't know, after a couple of years, Pat asked me if I would be interested in trying this. So I did, but I have to kind of interject here. I had a big help in the beginning because my good friend George Rollman was in the booth with me, acting as spotter. And that certainly gave me a lot of confidence not being up there alone.
Yeah, sure.
Because one of my main concerns was giving the boys credit. You know, who's got the ball, who's running, who's tackling. And it's, when you're just starting out, it's a lot on your plate. So George was sitting to my right and was invaluable in his help with the spotting.
Shout out to George Roman. There's a number of viewers watching live. Mr. Sadagiani, thanks for tuning in. If you are watching live, jump in with a question, say hello to Jim, and jump in with the comments. And so did you realize right away you liked it, Jim?
Oh, I was pretty sure I would like it.
Yeah.
Sports being in my blood. And I didn't think I'd have any trouble in terms of liking it, or I certainly knew enough about the game of football, but it's different when you've got the play-by-play to do. I mean, your public address technically, but I kind of made it my own in that I didn't just do down and distance and tried to make it a little more than just down and distance and being bland. So I kind of interjected my own style and whatever that was, good or bad.
It was. Again, if you've been to Friday nights at Glennette, Jim had such a way. I wrote in the description about precision, intensity, and certainly it wasn't over the top for Port Jervis, but we knew you were on the Port Jervis side for sure.
Well, I think that's only natural. You know the coaches, of course, and the students. That's another fine line to walk between, being a homer, being fair. One of the nicest compliments I got in all the years that I did this was very near the end of my broadcasting. And it was a game between Port Jervis and New Paltz. And if I remember correctly, it was like the 9th game of the year. Neither team that year was in the playoffs. And it was like game number 9. And meaningless in terms of further progression in the state tournament. And Ron Semerano was AD at the time. And a couple days after the game, Ron sent me a copy of an email he had gotten from a parent from a New Paltz player.
Oh.
Saying how happy he was with the job of the PA announcer. He didn't know who I was. I certainly had no idea who he was, in terms of being, a fair call and giving the kids credit. And that meant a lot, because to hear something from an opponent, so to speak, saying that he thought the job was well done, that meant a lot to me. And I certainly was thankful to Ronnie for, sending that on to me, so I was aware of that.
Absolutely. Again, the ceremony is going to be tomorrow night at Glennette, 6 p.m. We're going to do an unveiling of the sign for Jim, his family, and his name is going to be right up on there for the press box. Jim, how did you prepare for the game? You didn't just show up at 6:55 and turn the mic on. What were some things that you would do to prepare for the game?
Well, some of the obvious things, I always, when I got there, I took the program and immediately went over to the away team's cheerleaders.
Oh.
I figured they would know how to pronounce the names of the boys on the team. Because if there was anything I didn't want to do was mispronounce the name, because, my name was butchered basically my entire life. So I said, I got to do my best to give the boys their name the way they want it said. So I would go over to the cheerleaders, because they were always there at the head of the team. Team was in the dressing room, and would go over that. So that was step one.
Mm-hmm.
Would go over to the coaches when they came out to get the starting lineups of the opposing team. And of course, from the information in the papers, you knew about the team's records and, who the key players were, so to speak, and people you figure you would have to focus on as an opposition.
Jim, you must have missed a lot of things over the years, parties and celebrations, different events, because you would lock our games in. You did not miss a game for 45 years. Near the end, you had an obligation. I remember Brian took over for one game, but you didn't miss a game for 40 plus years.
Well, my lifestyle is not exactly the party lifestyle, so I don't think I missed too many parties. But no, it was something I loved to do, and I was actually disappointed when the schedule would come out and I'd see, there's only 4 home games this year. Some years you would get 5. So no, I just loved doing it. So that was on the top of the priority list, the Port football games.
You put them on the calendar right away.
That's right.
Yeah. We've played in a ton of, big games, right? The Bell game, playoff games, championships. Your voice, like you just said, a meaningless game, the 9th game against Newport. You were never that high or you were never that low. You were extremely consistent. How did you not get overexcited, during a Bell game last second? But how did you?
Well, you just trying to remember what your job is, so to speak. And I'll tell you, with all the fans in front of you, sometimes that becomes somewhat difficult, because you get wrapped up into the game and into the particular score and the scenario of down and distance, and okay, we're in the last 30 seconds, the game is in doubt. But I always remember when I first started, right in front of the press box at Glennette Field, there were a group of men, and they were like old-time Port Jervis people, and there were guys that probably played for Joe Viglione in his early years. I'm sure people have played for Coach Chase. Those guys were merciless on those referees. If they made a call against Port Jervis that they thought was incorrect, boy, they would let them have it. And I mean, these guys, they stood up for the whole game. I mean, I can still see their faces. I didn't know too many of their names, but they were there every home game.
And sometimes those guys, their voice carries into the mic.
Yeah, that happens sometimes too.
Yeah. Jim, was there any crazy events that happened over your time where the power went out or something happened to the mic or something went sideways during the game?
Well, a few times in the beginning, the sound system wasn't maybe the greatest, and we'd have a few issues, but by and large, we work things out. Yeah.
In addition to being the famous announcer, for Port Jervis football, you mentioned Jim Colaiaco here in Port Jervis, and I mean, everybody I bumped into over the past month when we've announced this is, oh my God, he was the best teacher. He was the best band teacher. So many kids went through your band class at the middle school. and you had an amazing teaching career, 33 years. Let's talk a little bit about that, Jim. How did you maintain that great attitude, that positivity over the course of 33 years?
Well, the kids, I think, can easily pick up on you in terms of, are you just there marking time, or is it something, you love to do? And I think they pick up on that. And I always felt, for me, the middle school level, which I spent my entire 33 years at the middle school, they were kids that hopefully I was able to motivate and, try to move them from where I got them after having left their elementary instrumental music career. Some of them had taken since fourth grade. They've had 3 years. Many had 2 years, and, try to get them to the next level, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And I always felt as though I was pushing them. Maybe some of them felt I was pushing them a little too much, but I just, enjoyed what I did and tried to instill them to work to get better, work to get better.
Was it nice for you then, years later, as you're announcing the games, to see the band kids playing at the games?
Oh yeah. I mean, many of them continued on, and, we've got, I think, 3 of my former students now in the district as music teachers.
Wonderful.
Jennifer, I'm going by maiden names.
Sure,
Jennifer Kamar,
Sure.
Dana Long, Trish Eckert. Forgive me, I don't know the married name.
Halpany. That's Kevin's wife.
Yeah,
sure.
So
your side mate there for many years.
Yeah.
We have a number of people watching live. Again, jump in the show, say hello in the comments. Thomas Day asked, do you have any years? Does it all blend together, or are there some years that stood out that these were some of the best teams we ever had?
Well, fortunately, most of the years, Port Jervis was a very strong team.
Yeah.
I mean, again, great coaching, great feeder system with the Pop Warner program. Whether it's a band program or an athletic program, I always told my kids in band that, maybe because of my love for the two, music and sports, I think there's a lot of similarities between music and sports. You've got to be self-disciplined. You've got to have that drive within you. I always told the kids in the instrumental program that I actually felt it was tougher to be a great musician than a great athlete. And that's because most of what you do as a great musician, you're doing by yourself. There's no glory to go lock yourself in the bedroom and practice for 2 hours.
Yeah.
The toughest team practice, you're out there with your classmates or with your teammates. You're going through some tough times, but you look across the field or the court, whatever. But it's not easy to go into that bedroom by yourself with your instrument, lock yourself in and say, I'm going to practice hard for the next 2 hours. There's nobody there clapping or rah-rah, no coach leading you on. So, but there's similarities there with music and athletics.
Yeah. You certainly found your two passions.
Yeah, I was lucky.
A lot of people get lost. What do I want to do with my life? You found two things you were very good at, very passionate about. Where did the love of sports come from?
Well, my dad was a big sports fan. I mean, he was, again, New York baseball giants, New York football giants. And I started at a very young age, getting into that too. And, I was just, again, very, very passionate about those two teams and following them, and, very much into sports very early, with especially, I was a huge Willie Mays fan, and following the Giants. I was, very upset at the end of the 1957 season when the Giants moved from New York to San Francisco. I was only 9 years old, but it was very, very traumatic for me.
Yeah.
Because there was my team going across the country.
So did you follow them, or did you switch to the Mets? What'd you do there?
Well, it was very difficult to follow them because, their games were 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, and there was no National League Baseball from the end of 57 in New York until 62 when the Mets came in. So it was, there were some dry years there.
Yeah, for sure. Wow. Incredible, Jim. Really, we're so excited. Again, the ceremony is going to be Friday night at 6 p.m. before the game. There'll be the senior events and then certainly the game. I know we're going to get to hear your voice on the microphone again. Jim, one of the things we talked about off air, right? You had mentioned, right? You never really know when something might be your last time, and COVID hit and kind of shut the games down,
Right.
and that was it. How was that for you? Kind of saying like, wow, this amazing run of 45 years ended, and I really didn't even get kind of any closure or any kind of enjoyment of that last time or the last few games.
Yeah. Well, I'm far from being the only person that this happened to. I felt so badly for all of the students, but especially those engaged in the extracurricular activities, whether it was, the prom or, I followed Port Jervis varsity softball very close. And, those kids that didn't get to have their senior year, the musical, just so many things. And of course, when that season ended, little did I know that the next season wouldn't be there because of COVID. And I never really knew, oh, gee, looking back, that was my last game.
Yeah. Well, we're glad to have you back. And again, maybe this will give some enjoyment on that closure and certainly passing the baton to Brian. Got to give a shout out to Brian Rollman. This was his idea. Presented it to myself, Dr. Bell. He's watching live here. And, we're so glad to make it happen. Dr. Bell throwing in here 1963 and 1980 are some of his best teams there. And Mr. McElroy, he's going to be on the mic. Maybe we could try to get him for a couple series in there. He might need a lozenge or a little hot tea or something. Jim, there's so many good things happening in the district. Really, you live close by here. What are your feelings here with the middle school construction and the changing of that? I mean, you lived in that building forever.
Yeah, well,
what are some of your feelings?
That building holds a lot of memories for me and my family. Both of my parents are Port Jervis High School graduates. My dad was the class of 1940. My mother was the class of 1944. In fact, I often joke with my mother when I visit her that she may be the last surviving member of the class of 1944. She's 97 years old. So there can't be too many left from the class of 1944. So, my family has a pretty steep tradition in Port Jervis. Mm-hmm. And of course, I spent my 33-year career at the middle school, and to ride by it now and to see the changes, I'm going to be excited to go through it when it's finished. Yeah. And I realize it's going to be K through 5.
It's going to be K through 5.
Okay.
Yeah. So many good things happening. Mr. McElroy, he writes here, says, my last game to hear God talk to us again as a former player. Well, in the write-up, Jim, it said, Bob Sheppard announced for the New York Football Giants as well as the Yankees all those years. And when I think of listening to the games, watching the games, did you ever go to a Yankee game or a football, the Giants, and hear Bob Sheppard and say, oh, I like the way he did that, or I'm going to take that? Did that comparison ever come to you before?
Not really. I did attend a couple of Yankee games and certainly heard his voice. And of course, watching on TV, you hear a very, very distinctive voice, maybe the most distinctive public address voice that I'm aware of. And but no, I didn't think that, as I say, until Pat Ferris threw me this opportunity. I never dreamt that it would be something I would do.
Yeah. What changed, or did you change anything from your first 5 to 10 years over the next 30 to 35? What changed from as a youngster doing it to someone who became a veteran doing it?
Well, I think stylistically, there are nuances. I don't know that I can specifically say what I did differently in, say, year 1 to year 15 to year 30 to the end. You're not aware of these things. I think they just evolve. And the game, of course, dictates. Again, fortunately, there were very few years where Port Jervis was not a dominant team.
Sure.
But as I said earlier, Coach Viglione, I believe, was one of the founding members, if not the founding member, of the Port Jervis Pop Warner program. And, they had great coaches at the Pop Warner level, many of them former Raiders. Mm-hmm. And then I remember also early on in my teaching career, Ed Polanis was a phys ed teacher at the middle school, and he coached the Port Jervis modified team.
Okay.
And George Rollman and I worked the chains for Eddie Polanis
Wow.
for his modified home games.
Wow.
And I'll tell you, to have somebody of Ed Polanis's caliber coaching at the modified level, I mean, Port Jervis was blessed to have somebody of that caliber. And then, of
Sure.
course, you had people like, John Romeo, Bob Witherow. I mean, we had a great coaching staff. Dave Simmons, Ronnie Semerano. I certainly can't name them all, but the Port Jervis coaching staff, I think, was second to none.
Yeah. They're doing an amazing job now. Coach Straharski's won Coach of the Year multiple times. Matt Polanis, Mark Trotta, just tremendous people. And we're blessed to have amazing teachers here, amazing staff in Port Jervis. It's one of the things that makes us so special. And you are a cornerstone, and you'll be remembered forever there at Glennette. Going into tomorrow night, are you emotional? Are you happy, sad? What are some of the emotions you're feeling?
Certainly very happy, and I'm sure as the hour approaches, it will become more emotional. But an honor that I never thought about, and now that it's here, I'm still almost in disbelief that to have something named after you is quite special.
Yeah,
and again, my connection with the Rollman family goes way back. When I started teaching in September of '70, George Rollman, he was in his second year. He came the year ahead of me. But again, we all know the history of George Rollman in Port Jervis, and his coaching legacy, very much into sports. So he and I connected very early on. Longtime friend, and I've known the family since 1970. So, his kids, Chris and Brian, and, Brian, I knew, would do a great job because of his knowledge of sports
and passion.
Yes.
Got a little bit of passion. You could hear your voice on the Rollman's porch. If you left the game early, you went back to have a coffee with Joan on the porch. It was tremendous. What a great thing. And I didn't grow up in Port Jervis, but I listened to you for 20 years here. And I have goosebumps. I really do. It's a special thing.
Thank you.
What a great honor. Jim, was there anything I didn't ask you about that you wanted to talk about, or any shout outs you wanted to give?
Well, I'm trying to think here. I think we covered, quite a bit of ground.
Yeah.
As I say, Port Jervis, I think, has been blessed not only with great coaches, but, great kids. I mean, many times Port Jervis was an undersized team, but I always felt as though Port Jervis played hard, basically executed their game plan, and, over the years had some tremendous players.
Jim, grab the sign there. We're going to show that there. We're very, so lucky. We're going to hang this in the press box behind Brian there. We'll take some pictures Friday night. And again, that ceremony is going to be 6:00 this Friday night, October 13th. Dr. Bell chiming in saying it's a most deserving honor. And it is, again, a shout out to Dr. Bell, Brian Rollman, for making this idea happen and come together. And the sign is literally being installed right now. And we're going to do a little unveiling there. So Port Jervis community, again, an honor to have Jim here on the podcast, and certainly tomorrow night. And as it's written in the description there, the echoes of your voice will live on forever at Glennette. So congratulations.
Nice. Thank you again, Andrew.
Yeah. Jim Colaiaco, everybody, longtime Port Jervis teacher. We're blessed to have amazing people. If you know of an amazing Port Jervis graduate, employee, someone that you'd like to see on the podcast, reach out and let me know. And we're having a lot of fun with this new podcast here, Port Center. You can get an idea of where we got the name from. Hope ESPN doesn't come calling. Yeah. So we hope to see you out there tomorrow night. Raiders senior night, cheerleaders band, and certainly the football players. I want to give a shout out for everyone tuning in live. If you're watching this on record, leave Jim a comment. We'll take a look at those. And we're blessed to have such a wonderful person here with us who had a great teaching career. And again, that voice as Mr. McElroy said here, God talking to us during the game. I think there might have been a couple prayers some nights too.
Undoubtedly.
Yeah. Well, Jim Colaiaco, everyone, thank you so much for tuning in here on Port Center. We're going to sign off, and we hope to see you tomorrow night. Jim, thanks so much, my friend.
Thanks again, Andrew.
All right. We're going to get our little video to sign off on the program. Thanks for tuning in, everybody.